G'day guys, I decided to put this video together today to talk about my Apex Berserker that I purchased a few months ago. It's actually my first bow. I've never owned a compound bow before, and I haven't even actually shot one of the higher end compound bows for me to even compare this to. But nevertheless, I'll give you a bit of a review, especially for those people who are either wanting to get into archery or perhaps are considering buying the Apex Berserker. Now I just want to say ahead of time also that I'm in no way affiliated with Apex. Okay, I'm just simply somebody who purchased their products, and I'm just giving an overview to those who wish to know a bit more about some of their archery products. So first impressions are, well, when I received it, by the way, I purchased it already assembled. Feels very solid. It clearly is a hunting bow because of its compactness. It comes in a variety of colors. I happen to have the camo version here. This is the Pro Series. I purchased the Pro Series version, which has sort of got all the bells and whistles that you get with the Pro Series, including silencers and the particular stabilizers and everything like that. This also is quite adjustable. The bow is very adjustable. It's got adjustable cams here for the draw weight. So you've got your Allen key adjustable knobs here, and so basically the instructions tell you, depending on how many turns you do, will depend on how much poundage the actual bow is adjusted to. I've got it slightly backed off at the moment to about, I don't know, 60-65 pounds. Also, the draw length is fully adjustable. It's very easy to adjust the draw length, and it saves you from going to a bow shop every time to have the draw length adjusted. So it's very simple. It's this little metal plate over here that you unscrew the Allen key, little Allen screw there. You adjust it to whatever draw length you want. Obviously you've got to make sure that whatever it's adjusted to on this cam is also adjusted on this cam here. I've got it on 30-inch. That's what I've found to be the ideal draw length for me. Probably the average person will start off on about 28-29 and then adjust it either less or more depending on personal preferences. Now, in terms of arrows, I'm using at the moment Apex again. They're carbon blackout arrows, 30-inch carbon blackout arrows with the 300 spine. Because this is a 75-pound bow, you need to have the right rating arrow as well. I believe that you can't use fiberglass arrows for this particular bow. You can go for aluminium bows, which I do have an aluminium arrow here, or you go for your carbon bows. Now the carbon bows are rated by a spine number. The lower the spine, the more suited it is to the more powerful bows. This is a 300 spine carbon arrow. So these are the ones I'm using at the moment, and they're so far really good arrows. Can't complain. But my first lot of arrows that I purchased were these Apex super heavy duty aluminium arrows, and they were quite good. I didn't have a problem with them, but I did end up losing a fair few of them from my fault, and I'll explain in a moment how that happened. But they are significantly thicker than your carbon bow here. So if you sort of do a comparison, you can see that they are quite thicker. So they do slide through or brush rest fairly snug, as opposed to nice and sort of loose for the carbon version. Okay. Also, and as I mentioned, I lost a lot of arrows initially, because when I had the arrows in the brush rest there, and then I draw the bow back, I was so focused on my target that actually I found occasionally that the arrow would sort of just pop out of the brush rest there, and I simply let go and the arrow would go astray, hit the brick wall, and I'd lose an arrow not knowing why. Eventually, after I lost about 7 or 8 arrows, I realized, okay, finally that's what's happening. So from now on, as a tip for all of you guys, is when you draw that bow back, look at your brush rest, make sure it's in there properly, and then focus on your target and let go. Okay. Also is a tip that I picked up from another YouTuber talking about wax. I purchased this separately and just sort of put the wax in between my 2 fingers. They come with a little little leather piece of cloth that you can simply put the wax onto, but I just put it between my 2 thumb and forefinger, and I just simply rub the various strings up and down. It's meant to preserve your strings and make them last longer. The only dramas that I had with this bow, very minor but nevertheless, is with my Peep Sight. You get this rubber tubing. Now, from my understanding, a lot of people use Peep Sights that don't require the rubber tube. This particular Peep Sight that you get with the Berserker is attached to this rubber tubing, and the point of the rubber tubing is as you draw the arrow back, the rubber tubing ensures that your Peep Sight is perfectly aligned rather than twisted as you draw back. Okay, and the problem that I was finding is maybe it's the fault of the shop, or it could be just a particularly old and brittle rubber tube that I had initially, is that as I was drawing back, every once in a while the tube would break off where it joins onto the Peep Sight, and I'd have to rejoin it back on. So eventually I bought a new rubber tube and attached it and gave it enough length, though it's just enough to straighten my Peep Sight without stretching it too much. Okay. Also, one thing to consider, but it's not something you need to get straight away, is a bow press. I've got this portable bow press that I purchased. It's not a Bowmaster. The Bowmasters are known as sort of the better of the portable bow presses. It's not a Bowmaster, but nevertheless works like a Bowmaster. And there's various videos to show you how to use those. A bow press is not urgent. It's not something you need to buy straight away, but it's something to consider not too distant future, because it allows you to adjust your strings or change your strings or do any sort of adjustments. But for the most part, the bow is very adjustable and it doesn't require any bow press unless you encounter any further issues besides just simply adjusting your draw length or your draw weight. And that's about it, all I can say at the moment. So again, great bow. And now I'll sort of talk about targets, because that's sort of the next topic that people tend to need to consider, especially the people starting out with archery. Now, again, I only use this bow as a target bow. I don't use it for hunting. Didn't buy it with the intention of using it for hunting. Just simply using it for targets. It's really quite accurate bow, and also the accuracy does come down to what type of arrows you use. So it's a combination of bow and arrow. For your recreational archer wanting just to shoot targets for recreational purposes, this bow is great. It's fantastic. It'll do the job. It makes very tight group shots, and any sort of bad aim that I do on my target, if I'm off, that's my error, not so much the bow's error. Okay, but do keep in mind you need to have good arrows, because arrow is what travels through the air, and if you've got a bad arrow, it'll certainly deviate through the air, and actually you think it's your bow, but it's actually your arrow. So you've got to have good arrows and the bow. Now, again, arrows, they cost about, for carbon bows, for a dozen, you're looking at around $100 from the Apex store, give or take. And now we'll just go over and we'll talk about my target and how I put that together. Okay, so one of the last things that people tend to consider when they're starting out with archery is actually coming up with a target that they can use in their backyard or wherever they happen to be using it. Now you can buy foam targets from many archery stores. Just be mindful that foam targets have a particular rating, and if your bow exceeds the target's rating, obviously there'll be issues there. My particular target is a simple box, cardboard box that I picked up. You can, if you're lucky, you can go sort of at the back of Harvey Norman's or at the back of some of the big retailers, and sometimes they'll have them laying around. And even if you have one target and you come across more boxes, say if you buy some piece of furniture or whatever it may be, keep those boxes because you never know when you'll need them. I'd always have a backup target just in case your first one falls apart for whatever reason. I put an extra bit of cardboard at the front of this target and sort of glued it in place just to give it a bit more reinforcement, because the primary thing that I use to actually stuff this target is plastic bags. Alright? It's full of plastic bags inside, compacted. And one of the tips that I can give you when you are making your own target and putting plastic bags in, and you can use any sort of plastic bags, you can use regular shopping bags, you can use, some people use shrink wrap. You can also go on certain days at the back of where the docks are in some retail stores like Target or Big W, and they're actually throwing out bags full of plastic bags that they might actually be wrapping products in their display stock or whatever it may be. So you can use all of that. You can use a combination of it and stuff it into the box. The trick is not to fill the box and then start compacting, but rather scrunch up your plastic bags, put them in, and sort of compact it in layers so that it's really compact, quite compacted inside. And again, good idea to put either on the inside of the box or on the outside, as I've done here, an additional layer from some other box of cardboard, and that way it stops the box from ballooning the more you compact it. Now, this target is quite large. It's not quite a metre by a metre. It's about probably 80 centimetres by about 80 centimetres, and it's probably about 50 centimetres, 40 to 50 centimetres deep. And one thing that I've learned is don't just simply put a target in the middle and then just aim all your arrows at that target, because that area will get peppered with arrows and will eventually just give way because of the amount of just holes that built up in that area. So I like to actually put a few targets up, in this case little bunnies like that, where I actually focus my arrows in different areas of the box so as not to put too much pressure in the one area. And the other thing is that if you have only the one target in the center, okay, you don't really want to be putting more than 3 or 4 arrows in at the same time, because of the chance that another existing arrow might actually hit the back of one that's already in there, and therefore you start getting damaged arrows. By spreading them out, you get to actually fire more arrows from the same spot before you finally come and pull them out and have another round. The arrows tend to penetrate, in this box anyway, a good 10 inches, 10 to 12 inches into the box. So you want to have depth of at least 40 plus centimeters, so that you don't get arrows coming out the back. I would recommend you at least buy 10 arrows, and you get 3 arrows with the bow, but I would certainly buy more arrows, because you don't want to be in one spot firing 3, coming to collect. Once you've got 10 or more arrows, you can have a nice little session before you finally come and collect your arrows. Okay, so now I'll give a few demo shots of how this target takes the arrows. Also, I hope you enjoyed that bit of information and that demo. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment on the YouTube comments and I'll try to get back to you. But that's pretty much everything that I can give you and let you know about. Again, great bow, and yeah, I'm very satisfied myself, and I hope those of you that are considering it get as much enjoyment as I got out of it myself.